Welcome, everyone. My name is Curtis Woloschuk. I'm the Director of Programming at the Vancouver International Film Festival. Really excited to have the crew from Handle with Care with us on the day that the film goes wide on VOD. I'm sitting in the VIFF offices, which are located on the traditional unceded territory of the Squamish, the Musqueam, and the Tsleil-Waututh people. VIFF is an organization that is largely run by settlers and immigrants, and we recognize that we have a tremendous responsibility because of that to build meaningful relationships with Indigenous creators, organizations, curators. It's work we take very seriously, and we hope that our work in that realm can help us better serve other communities that have been underserved by us in the past. Again, today, very excited to be joined by the gang behind Handle with Care, including the directors, Jeremy Schaulin-Rioux and Kirk Thomas, as well as Joey King Handles Haywood. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
us.
I think we don't find ourselves in the same space, only virtually, but the last time we were all in the same space together was like
Yes.
the world premiere of this film at VIFF back in 2021, which I was saying to
Wow.
Kirk before we started rolling, doesn't seem that long ago.
Yeah.
And for a film
Yeah.
that maybe is about the passage of time and also how recent some things can still feel or how close things can still feel to you. I'm wondering, maybe just takes a little bit like through the journey of getting that film in front of audiences for the first time, getting some much deserved recognition for the Notic, and then kind of the couple years that have taken us to this point here where it's finally available to a wider audience as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of exciting steps since we were on stage with you at VIFF. At that point, we didn't have any executive producers. Since then, we've got 4 really exciting EPs in Chris Paul, Shea Gilders Alexander, Lou Dort, and the RZA. So that was a really exciting part of the whole journey. Since VIFF, we've also done a few other film festivals, and like you said earlier, today's like our worldwide release. So it's streaming and available everywhere.
Well, I love the sense as well. You're talking about, kind of going the new grassroots approach to this. The Notic first reached infamy with the mixtapes and kind of like the back channel underground kind of dissemination, distribution of those. And now you're talking about how you're kind of like going through, Instagram, kind of messaging other people in the streetball community to get the wide release on their radar. And just wondering for yourself, how many of those relationships have kind of existed over the years, or how often has it been an opportunity of this film to kind of like reinstitute some of those conversations for yourselves?
Well, I think Joey keeps he's pretty locked in that community as he's sort of a legend in it himself. What do you think, Joey?
Yeah, like all those guys that we're kind of reaching out to and stuff like that, they've been, playing street ball basically almost the same time as us, right? And we just kind of got, blessed and lucky at the same time to meet, Jeremy and Kirk, and their magic that they put on the tape that, kind of separated us from, the and one and the other streetball crews. And when they saw it, it's like, holy crap, we didn't know like these guys even existed, right? But a lot of those guys were reaching out, they came from the same, era as us for streetball. We just, we just had, I guess a little better, not better, but like we just had people kind of supporting us more, and and had some really good talented people around us to just help us out, get our names out there. But it's so great to even have their support and love and dedication, and also and a lot of these guys still play street basketball, so it's really good.
Well, one thing that struck me when watching the film, I will admit my ignorance. I wasn't there for the Nautic the first time around, but also
Yeah.
I think
So
there's like the film for myself does fit in kind of like this body of like some recent Vancouver films.
yeah,
I think about like an archive that looks at like the documentation of different community histories in the city, or Union Street that was at the festival last year, talking about the history of Black communities in the city, and it
yeah,
kind of unearths this untold story or undertold story maybe about like this community that built up around street ball in the city in the early aughts. And I think what really resonates, maybe regardless of what your background is like finding that found family aspect as well, and
yeah,
like and
yeah,
finding your people and the people that understand you and get you. And
yeah.
when Kirk was talking about the EPs have come on, I'm wondering if that is there like the streetball crew that this like, or streetball community that this appeals to? And then do you think that is the wider kind of piece that really connects with people? Is this finding your group, your crew you can run with?
Yeah, I think so. I think yeah, like I think it's just I hope it just doesn't go just with all with our streetball crew, but also other people, kind of understand our story, because I know definitely it's a basketball story, but it's also a story of of being down, being like loving something that you love so much, but you want to make it, but there's so much hard work in it, and also like failure. So other people that are kind of going through that, but not playing basketball, like starting their own business, or could be, a doctor or a lawyer or something they want to do, they could kind of relate to the film. So I just hope it just doesn't just touch the streetball community. I hope it touched other people that's doing other stuff too. That want to make it, and they want to be motivated or pretty down. So when they see the film, like, man, you know what, I could relate to this, and you know what, I just got to keep working.
I
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
definitely packaged as a basketball movie, but hopefully we can spread out and reach more diverse audience, and they can kind of unwrap it and see that there's a lot more to it, like Joey said.
Yeah, I might even add on that when we started making the movie, it had been a while since we've been in contact with some of the guys, and some of them like Joey and John we've talked to a lot over the years. And I think originally Kirk and I and Ryan Sid, who's the main producer and who like kind of got this whole thing going, um, we sort of thought, oh, we're gonna make this basketball movie. And then as soon as we started getting into the interviews, it started to be kind of like, oh, this movie's just about a family. Like
Yeah.
every story is kind of just about a family. It's about like a family with like a messed up family where people broke off and went in different directions. And then like Joey was sort of the one who kind of kept everyone together and kept the family name sort of alive. So I think that in that same way you're talking about, Curtis, that's I think what makes it appealing, and something that hopefully can people that don't love streetball, I think, have reported back and said they really liked it in that same way of like, oh, I see myself in this. I see myself in the striving and in the hard work, and I see it because it's about like finding your people and sticking with them. So I thought that was, I think that's pretty apt.
Yeah.
It's and I was curious to ask you about like, the putting the wheels in motion for the film as well, and like maybe the different turns it took, because obviously the initial kernel of the footage in the film is, this documentation the two of you did 2 years ago. But there's that maybe clear division between like documentation and then a documentary film. And so wondering like, maybe just the process of getting the wheels in motion on the film itself. And then like that moment where you realize like, oh wait, this is a film. Like this isn't just this assemblage of
Yeah.
archival footage. It's not the interviews, but there's a narrative here, and there's like things we're wrestling with ourselves as well in the film and in the making of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it was pretty early on in the interviewing process. I think that it like again, like we knew that there had been struggles. We knew that lots of people in this crew, ourselves included, went through different types of hardships. But it became this thing after every interview. We're like, oh man, like this person's story is amazing. Like the guys that we thought were just going to come in and kind of give some like nice hype sound bites sat down and started kind of like unpacking stories from it, and how that time affected them and inspired them, and even posed challenges for them. And you start to go like, oh, this is like feels like, again, something that's a little bit universal, and maybe a perspective that isn't seen much. And I think for us that was like, it was just a matter of hitting record on the camera. Like I don't want to try to take any credit for what happens. I still marvel. Like I think the movie's really strong, and the best part about it is just like, how did this like one group of 10 or 11 friends from early 2000s Vancouver, how did they all grow up to be so like interesting to listen to talk and charismatic? And I think there is something to the like that brotherhood family aspect where everybody sort of learned from each other, hopefully Kirk and I as well. and grew up into these like everyone's a good storyteller. I don't know. I think that's what it was. Everyone had a really interesting story, and those stories seemed to tie together well enough that we're like, oh, this maybe people will want to watch this.
Yeah.
In some respects, I wonder if it's, I guess for myself, it kind of makes some sense because like in watching, streetball like feels like a space where you're actually allowed like freedom of self-expression, through the
Yeah.
game. And so many, we see the struggles of Joey yourself and others when you're in
Yeah.
more regimented
Yeah.
forms of basketball, like really looking, those fundamentals or,
Yeah. Yeah.
playing within a system and things like this. And it feels like it should be the attributes you see in those interview clips, you've also seen like in their younger years when they're devising the moves on the floor and like, how they want to actually present themselves and present their personalities through gamesmanship, one-upsmanship, and showmanship as well. And I think like everyone's kind of like a storyteller through the game as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think everybody has their own story. Everyone. Like Rory has his own story. Goosebumps. Everybody has their own story, man. And it's
Their own
just like,
story and their own style.
pardon me?
Their own story and their own style.
Yeah, own story, own style. But at the same time, we just wanted to express ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's how, we became the Notic and we became a family because everyone kind of understood everyone's story and everyone's struggle and agreed and say, okay, let's just like stick together, man, and just like become good friends and just play ball with each other. That's just what our crew was all about. We want to be like
pretty...
N1. We want to be like N1, but let's be different than N1. We love N1, but let's just be different. So yeah.
Well, that's like kind of a pretty typical trajectory, right? Like you think of someone being in a band or something like that, you begin like sounding like your influences, and then you eventually find your own way of expressing yourself as well.
Yeah.
I'm curious, maybe I think there's kind of a great tradition of be it like early punk music or skateboard videos, things like this, like kind of subcultures being early adopters of kind of documentation of themselves, and where this is like very commonplace now, and wondering for all three of you, like that kind of self-documentation having been so ingrained in yourselves from an early age, like how do you kind of view the propensity or like this, how everyone just makes it a part of their being now, and like they may not be, so happened, or the three of you were capturing like a movement in the city, things like this really epochal moment, but it has become so commonplace now, and I'm wondering how you approach even like documenting your own lives, knowing that it's been part of your being since you were like at a really young age.
Yeah, I mean, we got so lucky that we did it back when we were doing it because, like you said, not everyone was doing it back then, and it wasn't as easy to share. You weren't just like documenting a game and then instantly posting it on Instagram later that night. We would just hold on to the footage, and then we could put it out in the way that we wanted to show it.
Because we know that there's no way Rory would have let us get away with holding on to clips to make a mixtape. He would have just been like, that has to go up right now. For sure. He'd be like, why isn't that on IG right now? Sorry, Kirk, keep going.
No, I mean, like, yeah, it would be different if we were just starting out right now. I don't know if I got more to add to that, but I'm glad we were doing it when we were doing it.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say, like, the stories that are told by the Notic in the current day, Rory's are some really tough ones to hear, and I'm sure they're difficult for him to share as well. And wondering, for Jeremy and Kirk, like, what was it like for you to maybe like reestablish that level of trust with the Notic, to create a level like a safe space for like stories like that to be told, and that they would be respected and honored, and in eventually how they were depicted and shared in the film as well.
Yeah, I think I could speak to even, I think back then, like back when we were making mixtapes, we tried to do things as a group, and I think the movie talks about some areas where we weren't as transparent as we should have been and didn't plan as a group was the way we should have. but we still try, at least on a creative tip, we were kind of doing everything together and making this documentary from the very beginning. The very first kind of emails reaching out about it, we just sort of made it really clear, like, let's try and be really, really free in the interview, because we're going to treat it as a collective in terms of the filmmaking afterwards. So if there's something you feel like you're not being depicted the way you want, or you spoke in a way that you're not happy with, like, everyone's going to see rough cuts, everyone's going to see the footage, and we're going to make sure this really is how we want to present ourselves. So it's maybe a little less hard hitting, but I think it's a better way to make everybody know that this is going to be a great chance to tell their story.
Yeah, and a lot of the I don't know, more difficult topics, I guess you could say, were brought up beforehand. It wasn't like a shock, like, hey, we're going to talk about this, we're going to talk about this. Like, we gave them some notice, you know, these are the things we want to talk about. Are you okay with that? And again, just be free to talk about it. And then if you change your mind and say something you didn't like, then cut it.
I'd ask Joey about that, because I feel like your interview started off. I mean, your interview is sort of the crux of the whole movie, Joey, and it started off kind of like traditional, like, we're like, you know, when did you learn this move? Like, how did you get inspired to do the skips and everything like that? And then there's like a moment that I feel like is probably the best part of the movie, where, because you sort of have this moment of realization of like, oh, this is how basketball's kind of kept me sane, and why it's so hard for me to think about giving it up. You know what I mean? Do you remember that? And
Oh yeah, big time, man. I didn't even know when, I think it was it Jeremy or Kirk? You asked me that question, man, or that interview at UBC is just like,
yeah, it's like
I
hour
didn't even
3 of
know
the
I was
interview,
gonna,
and all of a sudden,
it's all of a sudden just like, it's like, man, now I understand why I never stopped playing basketball. Like I understood why I kept on playing, but that really like made me actually fully realize, like, this is why I play, and it's why I would never stop playing, and it's why I never gave up, because it's just I've been through so much in my childhood that basketball was like a safe, like it was like a pill, it was like a Tylenol, you know. So I never even knew that, when you asked that question, I never really knew till, it was like you said, it was like, yeah, like moves and crossovers, and I like going to Japan, China, and to like, holy crap, like, this is crazy. I'm doing all that because of this, you know, this issue that I had in high school, and my teachers, or just in life in general, right? Yeah, crazy, crazy.
So takeaways for aspiring documentary filmmakers: push into that third hour of the interview, because that's where you get to the good stuff. Just,
Yeah,
softball them initially with like, tell us about the crossovers, and
yeah,
then
yeah.
and eventually you wear them down and you get to the emotional crux of this entire thing.
yeah. Good defense, really good defense, Jeremy, Kirk.
Yeah,
Right,
that's what
Ryan.
we're here for.
You mentioned it, Jeremy, as well, about, some moments for yourself and Kirk, and kind of like reckoning with, desire, recognition of where there should have been more transparency in the past, and things like this. And maybe that, again, wondering for yourself, like, when we see it in the film, maybe the question is that the moment it kind of, was it a light bulb moment for yourselves of being called on that? Or was it a growing realization you had over the making of the film, that this is something you had to acknowledge, in the making of this film, about the working relationship the first time around?
Yeah, go ahead, Kirk.
Well, I was going to say, we definitely knew that those topics were going to come up, and realized that there was issues back in the day when we were making the mixtapes with some lack of transparency and just dropping the ball on some of the business aspects. But I mean, those were conversations that we just didn't have back then with some of the guys for whatever reason. And it's something that we definitely should have. And it was a really great part of the documentary, just on a personal level for us, because we got to just chat about it. We had like a deep, honest conversation, and talked about like where we messed up, and admitted fault, and kind of like gave the guys a space where they can express like how they were feeling, and how it affected them, like maybe negatively as well. And we got to hear their side of things, and then got to close it at the end, and hopefully made up for it, right?
Yeah, I think like part of making the documentary, obviously we sort of have to examine the idea of like, are we the people to tell this story, you know? And were we the people to tell the story back then? And you hope that you're coming from everything from a place of love, right? And I think that's really true. But I think going into it, it was like, we're gonna examine, are we still, you know, what gives us the right to tell this story? And hopefully that's part of the fun of the movie, and and what makes the movie have value is kind of examining that. But it's something that we knew we were going to do, but we didn't know how. And I think especially Jermaine Fresh's interview and John, who interviewed us, kind of pushed all that stuff in a really healthy way that had us have to deal with it, you know, on camera in the same way we were asking like Joey to kind of be vulnerable. And hopefully that helps. And we try to keep it not too big of a part of the movie because we're not the most fun and exciting part, but
It you know, it's I'm always curious with you know, directing teams, duos as well. You know, about typically it's sometimes it's about the division of labor, but you know, your involvement with this is obviously very apparent from the mixtape days, but you know, your own paths, like Kirk and Jeremy, have kind of gone different ways. Like Jeremy, you've remained very involved as a filmmaker, and Kirk, this is kind of marks a return to like filmmaking for yourself. So wondering maybe any conversations the two of you had about how you would kind of like restart that kind of creative partnership of for yourselves years later, and like, and then how were there different aspects that each of you brought to this, like Jeremy from like a working filmmaker standpoint, and Kirk from like more of like a returning to this like with fresh ideas or a more objective perspective perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely relied on Jeremy for a lot of the for a lot of stuff in this project, because like you said, he kind of stuck with the film path, whether it be music videos, TV shows, shorts, all that kind of stuff, and I went more in like the corporate world. But never, I don't think I ever really lost the urge to have some sort of creative project like this, and it was a dream come true getting to do this with Jeremy. He's been my best friend since grade 7, and you know, we made the Notic together, and now we get to make the Notic documentary together. And the division of labor was just like, well, I mean, we talked about the story and the vision for the documentary and how we want to tell the story, and like bounce ideas off each other, split up some of the tasks with who's going to interview who, and then maybe tap out and jump in halfway through, that kind of thing. And then yeah, we really relied heavily on Jeremy for the editing, which is like the magic of the movie, you know, like he killed it on that aspect, and he can talk more about that.
I mean, maybe I would say, and Joey could probably speak to this as well. Joey, who also I think found the magic of editing after we stopped making mixtapes, and now makes a lot of his own edits. And I see him out in the corner putting out cool edits and narration. But I feel like the story of the Notic, like even making the mixtapes, and then I mean, you tell me, Joey, but even on the like the basketball competition, and for sure in the creating of moves aspect, it was sort of always like oh, we could do that, like with no, you know, no, it's like we sort of always act as if like Kirk and I are like, we can make a feature documentary. We used to make basketball mixtapes. This will work, sure. You know? And like Joey's like, oh, like top 3 streetballer, like, oh, whatever, headaches coming to town, I'll just crack them. Like,
yeah,
and,
no
and
problem.
I think that has served us well. Well, like a super cool story that would be remiss not to talk about is Johnny Blaze. John and David Dazzle, John and Dave Mubanda just finished a feature documentary about their story of how their high school coach, who was like one of the very first female head coaches in Vancouver, their high school coach sort of changed their lives. And it was a really interesting part of some of the interviews we did with them, but we had to cut it all because it was a little too off topic. And they've just gone ahead and made like a beautiful documentary about it in the same way. And they called me, they're like, how do you make a documentary? I was like, guys, we didn't know. Just you know,
Act as if.
Just do it.
Yeah. Like, oh, you want me to come to Japan and like and like sell out an arena? Joey's like, yeah, okay, I can do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Joey, you were involved in this project as a producer as well. So curious for yourself, like kind of having that kind of bigger picture involvement with the film, but also, having to be subject within it. Was that ever a balance for you to strike, to kind of know,
Kind of, man.
yeah.
For sure. Yeah, man. Just I'm a ball player, man. I teach kids, basketball. I travel around the world. I play professional basketball. I've been in some movies before, like just as an actor, special actor, and then extra, or get a pretty good role on like my two and stuff like that, but not a producer. So Jeremy, Ryan, Kirk, they called me a lot for information, or even finding contacting the other street ball players, and just like so it was a little different, man. A little different to have a say in the film and being a producer. But at the end of the day, man, like Jeremy and Kirk said, we made it happen, man. I'm not a producer, really, to be honest with you. I try to do my best, man. But it turned out well.
So to be clear, we have no filmmakers and no documentary makers and no producers on this call whatsoever.
Correct.
Yeah.
We should again mention Ryan Sidhu, who is the kind of the de facto producer, or the producer of this, who has made like amazing documentary features, and definitely had a lot to do with making sure this thing didn't go off the rails, and making sure that it wasn't just like 2 hours of us going like, remember we did that, sick, and like Joe, making sure digging a whole bunch of layers deeper. And he had a huge part of everything that makes the movie good, and especially on that tip, because he wasn't acting as if he actually knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
Joey, I wanted to ask you, because you said earlier today you were training some kids as well, and right now you have, is it the School of Handles basketball?
Yeah, School of Handles basketball. Just had a spring break camp. Over 25 kids at the camp. Our second week. Our first week we did really well, and just finishing. And also I did some individual training, group training too. So it's the business is doing pretty good, man.
Nice. And again, in the film, we obviously see like some of the BS you had to put up with when you were growing up and playing ball yourself. And there's probably obvious answers to this, but still would love to hear it from you, in terms of how that's informed your approach, or what is your kind of like practice when it comes to working with kids, and be it, not only building teams, but building their ability to express themselves and build like self-belief for themselves as well.
Yeah, I just tell them, man. I just kind of, tell them my story a little bit. I don't talk about too much about myself, but usually, I bring them in and, tell them maybe about a minute or two, because I don't want to bore the kids, talk about my stuff. But I just tell them, listen, just try your best out there. You're going to go through stuff. If you believe in something, just, work hard at it. And you're going to go through, hell. You're going to go through some mud, but end of the day, if you really love it, and you really care about it, and deep inside of you that you're really good, you're going to make it, right? Just like this film, like, listen, man, I didn't know that I would be a part of a movie with Slam Magazine, and we did it through the love of the game. Like, it wasn't us thinking, what, we're playing ball because I want to make it. Yeah, definitely you want to make it pro or all this stuff, but we actually did it because we just loved it, right? So that love and hard work brought all these things, being in Slam, being in the VIFF opening, and all this other great stuff, man. You just never know where life could take you if you just work hard and just believe in it just a little bit. Just never know. I'm 39 years old, almost 40 years old. People thought that I would never, ever make it this far, or even continue to play basketball. Like, I'm playing in China, playing against 25-year-olds, one-on-one up to 100, and smoking them, right? And that's just because I love the game, and I want to be better. It's not because I think I'm the best. I think that I need to improve every single time, but that hard work and dedication, knowing that I need to improve, I'm playing ball at 40 years old, destroying guys. So it's a blessing, man. And I'm just happy to be at this point in my life, and just continue playing at a high level. I want to see how far I could take this in the next 20 years, man. 20 years, 60, 60 years old, man. Let's see.
I wish you the very best of luck with that.
I wish you and your joints the very best.
Yes, exactly.
Seriously, I'm in the best shape of my life. The best shape. Sometimes I play
Still
two,
all plant-based?
plant-based. I play sometimes 2 times a day. I play like a day.
Wow.
Like I still do it, man. So I don't know. My body's a little different.
Well, before we wrap up, dare I ask about the third Notic mixtape?
Oh yeah. Notic 3.
Notic 3?
This summer, right? This summer?
Yeah, it's still locked up. No one's seen it yet other than the crew, but we're trying to plan out a Notic day in Vancouver sometime in the summer, and then yeah, have the whole city out, have a big party, maybe a little tournament, and then do a little screening for the city.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah. If you're
Well-
there and you see Joey, he will play you one-on-one.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
he will destroy me.
He-
If you're there, that is an absolute guarantee.
He will play you.
Well, thank all three of you for being here, and congratulations on the film going wide today. I hope it finds as wide an audience as possible, because it's a beautiful chapter of this city's kind of untold history, undertold history, and accomplishments worth celebrating.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Hope to see you on the court sometime, man.
And Curtis, it all started at your festival. It all started with you programming us. That was the launch pad for this, and it was just, yeah, we still can't think of a better time. So thank you again.
Yeah.
Thank you all.